couple of other phrases in those official school district statements caught my attention as well. We are implementing new protocols to ensure this does not happen again. And school administration will work closely with both the band and football program to strengthen coordination going forward. How long have you all been playing football? Is this, in fact, your first rodeo? Hello, and welcome to episode 70 of the BandWagon podcast for the week of October 6th, 2025. On this edition of the program, news and notes from the band world, including ESPN's band competition loses a charter member. A political decision has band-related ripple effects. I've got a story about a Beatles tune. And I have 3 examples of when bad things happen to good bands. I'm your host, Rob Hammerton. Hello, dear listener. Back in the spring and early summer, this podcast went away from its usual, it's been around long enough to have usual things. Anyway, it went away from its usual trio section practice, which was to feature someone else's voice other than mine in an interview conversation format. For a few weeks, the trio section was kind of an overblown second strain, which is to say, you got to hear my voice pontificating on a larger band-related topic. Sometimes it was a tribute, sometimes it was a rant. This episode, what you're listening to right now, will be a bit of both, since a number of news items and other happenings in the band world seemed to me to point in the general direction of one overarching theme in the last 2-3 weeks, and that is this. As much as anything else, bands are public-facing organizations, and as such, a great deal that we as band members and band organizations do is available for public scrutiny. Pretty early in my life as a bando, it was impressed upon me that because that was true, it would be well to behave in a way that gave the organization and the activity a good name. Now, you can't control how people react to a band's work or personality, and you can't control how other people treat your specific organization or the band activity in general, but you can do your best to put your best foot forward. That's about all you can do. So, with that in mind, rewrite that press release, and away we go. Let's play the first strain. In this episode's first strain, news and notes from the band world. Dateline, Jackson, Mississippi. Credit on this story to the reporting and writing of Stephen J. Gaither of the online outfit HBCU Game Day and Aaron Fields of the online outlet A1Mediasports.com. Jackson State University has surprised HBCU marching band fans by announcing that its Sonic Boom of the South will not take part in ESPN's Red Lobster Band of the Year competition for the 2025 season. In a message to supporters, Jackson State Band Director Dr. Roderick Little said the decision reflects Jackson State's internal priorities and not a retreat from competition. He emphasized that sitting out future adjudication and rankings is a matter of institutional preference, not rivalry or lack of capability. Quote, "Our students work tirelessly and are evaluated by a different set of standards, those that focus on personal growth, musical excellence, and cultural impact." Little's letter made clear that Jackson State continues to hold the Band of the Year organizers in high regard and seeks to maintain positive relationships across the broader HBCU band community. John T. Grant of ESPN Events, who is the executive director of the Band of the Year competition, responded to the decision with respect and understanding. In his statement, he wrote, quote, "We acknowledge the position taken by Jackson State University's Sonic Boom of the South. Each band will be adjudicated through the season, as we have for the last 2 seasons. Our process provides that any band in the season-ending top 5 may decline to participate in the final competition if selected." Grant also reiterated that the initiative's mission is improvement, not trophies. Quote, "The objective of the Band of the Year is to provide evaluation and insight to help each band improve their overall on-field performance." By stepping away, Jackson State is signaling that national rankings, however prestigious, aren't the only measure of success in the HBCU band world. Little said, quote, "This isn't about rivalry or capability, it's about defining our own benchmarks." The Band of the Year events process has been under a microscope since ESPN announced it in the summer of 2023, as it is based solely on field performances. The Sonic Boom was a finalist in the inaugural Band of the Year competition in 2023. Former Jackson State Director Dowell Taylor is one of the Band of the Year co-chairs. Jackson State's decision highlights an ongoing philosophical split in HBCU marching circles. Should bands chase rankings and titles or prioritize their own artistic and educational goals? With ESPN's Band of the Year now entering its third season, Jackson State's absence is likely to inspire conversations about how these band programs measure success and may cause other bands to reevaluate how and why they participate. A number of HBCU game day commenters weighed in on the various issues that were raised. A commenter called Les Nubia wrote, "I'd venture to say keeping with internal priorities is a safe place you can always rely on and retreat to." Dr. Curtis B. Inabinet Jr., DM, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, author of the book The Legendary Florida A&M University Marching Band, The History of the 100, commented, "I agree with Jackson State's decision to back away from such competition. Like Jackson State, the 100 does not have anything to prove. Therefore, I welcome the day when FAMU decides not to participate." A commenter called Charles Melton wrote, "I agree 100% with Jackson State. I hope Texas Southern follows by excusing themselves as well. This band ranking system doesn't have clear indicators, nor do we know for sure how each member of that judging panel feels personally toward each band." And a commenter called merely Mark Eyes wrote, "Dr. Little told ESPN after the inaugural season that JSU would not be participating. They still used the boom last year and again this year in publicity materials, so ESPN and Red Lobster said, yeah, whatever, and continued to use the boom as if they were part of this competition. So what was done in the dark came to light." And that's news and notes from the band world. If you have a news item you think should be included in this segment, send me a link via email to heybandwagon@yahoo.com. Now I'll observe a brief caesura and meet you on the other side. Hope you'll stay with me. Okay, let's pick it up at the second strain. In a moment of very firm blowing up of the usual structure of this podcast, this is a second strain and trio combo platter. And in it are 3 very recent examples of bands making the news in ways they might rather not, and in ways that have nothing to do with what all of the actual band members are actually doing on the actual field or in the actual concert hall. Example number 1, when bad things happen to good bands. Friday Night Lights in Idaho Falls turned into more than just a home high school football tilt back on the 19th of September. A gentleman named Mike DeJohn posted a message on the Facebook group Band Parents, Tips, Tools, and Resources. The message said this, quote, "I just came across a story that made my stomach turn. During a halftime performance, a football team entered the field early while the marching band was still performing. Not only did it cut their show short, but it even caused damage to some of the band's equipment. Here's the thing. This wasn't an accident. These are athletes with eyes. They could clearly see what was happening. It's easy to point a finger and say, yep, there's the problem. The football program treating the band like they don't matter. And because it was so public, it went viral. The school made statements, the team made statements, but honestly, the damage was already done, both literally and symbolically." Unquote. Here's the news story about it from the online outlet eastidahonews.com. Dateline, Idaho Falls, Idaho. Facebook posts showing high school football players running onto the field during Friday night's marching band halftime performance have drawn angry comments. The following statement was issued on Saturday afternoon from Carla Larange, superintendent of the Idaho Falls School District. Quote, "Last night, during halftime of the Idaho Falls High School football game, an incident occurred when the football team entered the field earlier than scheduled, while the marching band was still performing. As a result, the team's entrance overlapped with the conclusion of the band's show, causing disruption to the performance and potential damage to some equipment. Idaho Falls High School and District 91 regret this disruption and are taking the matter seriously. Both the football program and the marching band are integral to our school community, and we value the talent, dedication, and pride that our students bring to their activities." Head football coach Joseph Parker issued the following statement, quote, "As the head coach of the Idaho Falls football program, I want to sincerely apologize for the disruption that occurred during the conclusion of the marching band's halftime performance at last night's game. The football team entered the field earlier than scheduled, and this unfortunately overlapped with the band's closing moments. I regret that this interrupted their performance and took away from the hard work and dedication they put into preparing for the show. It has been brought to my attention that there may have been damage done to some flags during this incident. I apologize for any damage caused, and I want to make it clear that the Idaho Falls football program will replace any material damaged during this unfortunate event. Both our band and football team are vital parts of our school community. I greatly respect the time, energy, and pride our students invest in representing our school, and I take full responsibility for ensuring better communication and coordination moving forward. Thank you for your understanding and continued support of all of our student programs." Principal Dallin Parker of Idaho Falls High School also emphasized that this incident, quote, "does not reflect the values or expectations of the school. This is not who we are at Idaho Falls High School. Our students, staff, and community take great pride in all of our programs. We are implementing new protocols to ensure this does not happen again. Both the band and football team are essential, and we are committed to creating an environment where every student feels supported and respected. Idaho Falls High School administration is conducting a full review of the incident and will address any findings from the investigation. School administration will work closely with both the band and the football program to strengthen coordination going forward. Idaho Falls High School and District 91 remain committed to ensuring a positive and respectful environment where all students can thrive." The Facebook post writer, Mike DeJohn, continued, quote, "It leaves me asking bigger questions that I think we as parents need to wrestle with, including, how would you feel if this happened to your kids in their program? What would you do in that moment or afterward to stand up for them? And maybe most importantly, what can we do moving forward to make sure football and band aren't enemies sharing the same field, but partners who respect each other's space and contribution? Because this isn't just about one incident, it's about a culture we all know too well. And if we don't talk about it, nothing changes. So, what do you think? How do we start bridging this gap before another program gets trampled, literally or figuratively?" Unquote. Rob here again. The content of those official statements, well, I could go on for quite a while about language like, "An incident occurred when the football team entered the field earlier than scheduled while the marching band was still performing," and "The football team entered the field earlier than scheduled, and this unfortunately overlapped with the band's closing moments." Unfortunate. Mistakes were made. Was the coach somehow not in charge of when his team returned to the field? Was there not some kind of prepared schedule of events that included scoreboard clock timing and the like? When I was the band director at Holy Cross, the athletic department generated and distributed a game day timeline that stated very clearly when the band would enter the field for pregame and by what time on the clock it was expected to have cleared the field. I always made sure we held to that schedule, and, tip of the cap to old HC, we never got run over. The punters occasionally decided that they needed to precede their teammates back onto the field at halftime so they could get more practice, but at least the entire team didn't join them for an extra help session. And at big-time college football games, which is what every high school football program thinks they are, and don't let them lie to you and suggest they know they're in Idaho Falls, Idaho. At big-time college football games, that timetable is sacrosanct. There are a ton of moving parts to pregame and halftime, and as long as everybody plays by the rules, everybody is still friends afterward, and the TV networks are not inconvenienced, which is crucial. A couple of other phrases in those official school district statements caught my attention as well. "We are implementing new protocols to ensure this does not happen again," and "School administration will work closely with both the band and football program to strengthen coordination going forward." How long have you all been playing football? Is this, in fact, your first rodeo? Also, I kind of feel like both sides are not equally at fault here. Again, the football coach noted that, quote, "Both our band and football team are vital parts of our school community. I greatly respect the time, energy, and pride our students invest in representing our school, and I take full responsibility for ensuring better communication and coordination moving forward. And we value the talent, dedication, and pride that our students bring to their activities." Do you? Do you really? And the high school principal promised that, quote, "This is not who we are at Idaho Falls High School." Is it not? It might actually be. Watch the video. I've included a link to it in this episode's show notes. All right, example number 2, when bad things happen near good bands. Dateline, Tallahassee, Florida. Florida A&M University's longtime band announcer has issued a public apology after he made remarks about the Honeybees, the plus-sized dance team which performs with the Alabama State University Mighty Marching Hornets. The comments triggered widespread criticism during Saturday, September 27th's football game, at which Florida A&M hosted Alabama State. As the Honeybees left the field following their halftime performance, Florida A&M band announcer Joe Bullard called them, quote, the new face of Ozempic. Soon thereafter, the incident spread on social media and quickly ignited outrage across the HBCU landscape. Bullard released a statement on Sunday the 28th, which said in part, quote, my comments directed toward the ASU Honeybees were meant as light-hearted banter, but I now recognize that they came across in a way that was hurtful and disrespectful. For that, I extend my deepest and most heartfelt apologies, first and foremost to the ASU Honeybees, to Alabama State University, to the Alabama State University Marching Band, to Florida A&M University, and to the fans and supporters of both institutions who were in attendance or anyone else who heard my words. To anyone who was offended, I am truly sorry. Alumni, fans, and HBCU supporters criticized the public address remark and called it disrespectful toward a team that has earned national recognition for its talent and cultural impact. FAMU President Marva Johnson, who probably didn't love having to deal with this week, issued a statement on Sunday evening, saying in part, quote, as an institution, we take great pride in the Marching 100 and the atmosphere our band creates on game day, but with that pride comes responsibility. The language used during halftime fell short of our standards. We must do better to ensure that every performer on the field is treated with the respect they deserve. Johnson also announced that the university will review its internal protocols for public announcements at athletic events. She explained that FAMU plans to use this moment to reinforce respect and accountability within the game day experience. Alabama State University President Quentin Ross issued his own statement, which included thoughts about the broader significance of the moment for HBCUs, saying, quote, within HBCU culture, our bands and dance teams are more than entertainment, they are institutions. When someone disrespects that tradition, they don't just hurt a single group, they undermine something that generations have built. The Honeybees, founded in 2004, have become a celebrated part of Alabama State's band program. The group actively challenges stereotypes and expands representation for plus-size dancers in HBCU band culture. Their performances have reached national audiences through halftime shows, television appearances, and viral video clips. Alabama State President Ross also said, quote, while we recognize the spirit of competition, there is no place for disparaging or demeaning remarks directed at our scholars. This incident has highlighted the tension that comes with historic HBCU rivalries. The rivalry between Alabama State and FAMU brings fierce competition on the field and high-profile battles at halftime. The challenge, as in any heated rivalry, HBCU or not, is, as someone once said, to lead with a heart of fire but with a head of ice, and to know where the line is and how not to cross it. On Wednesday, the 1st of October, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, or SWAC, officially reprimanded and fined Florida A&M University in the wake of the incident. The SWAC had announced the day before that Florida A&M would face a $10,000 fine and that Bullard, the public address announcer, would be suspended for the next 2 games. In addition to the fine and suspension, the SWAC acknowledged the apology issued by Florida A&M, saying it trusted the institution to prevent similar issues from happening again. So here's an example of a band being caught in a different kind of crossfire, one not of its own making, or at least not of the making of the people who designed or instructed or carried out the field show itself. Unless that remark had been included in the Florida A&M halftime PA script, and therefore was written by someone actually on the band staff, but I couldn't find any indication in any of the news reports about it that the Florida A&M announcer had been reading the remark in question off of a script. An offhand remark can very often fly under the radar, unless it's over a very loud set of public address speakers. I got some experience with clutching a microphone and reading a script back about 10 years ago when I was assisting with the Central Connecticut State University Marching Band. And maybe it's just me, but I was very aware that anything and everything I was saying was audible not just in the stadium, but throughout the land. I double-checked my script and said nothing that was not contained on those pages. Better for everyone. Not to mention, I didn't want to improvise anything that would cause the band to be on the field longer than its allotted time slot. Speaking of, I have been within close metaphorical and physical proximity of a couple of announcers who did have a habit of venturing away from pre-scripted material, and in both cases they kept it appropriate, but it was a little bit of a nail-biter. At UMass Amherst in the 1990s, the Minuteman Marching Band's PA announcer was a gentleman named Jim McCrosty. He was 100% stentorian bombast and nothing but enthusiastic about the band, with his signature growling call, "The power grand class of New England. But every so often, usually after the band had finished its halftime field show, Jim would get to the end of the band's staff credits. Music was arranged by Michael Klesch, Rob Hamilton, and Tom Hannum. Drill design was by Heidi I. Sarver. He would bid the audience farewell on behalf of the band and express the hope that they would stick around for the post-game show. And that part was almost undoubtedly not on the script he had in front of him. Sometimes that extemporaneousness was fairly boilerplate, but other times I'm not sure what got into him because it ended up being corny at best and really awkward and overblown at its least great. It was cringe before cringe was a social media meme term. And during my time as the graduate assistant for Boston University athletic bands, well, dear listener, you met Scott Monty in episodes 35 and 36 of this podcast, a suave and mellifluous gentleman whose every word nowadays a lot of people on social media hang on. He is wise and well-spoken, someone whose counsel on matters of communication has been sought out by people at the highest levels of corporate America, and all of it delivered in a handsome voice that does scream public address announcer. And as he himself admits, when he got behind the microphone in the press box at Nickerson Field before and after halftime of BU football games, you never knew exactly what you were going to get, as he announced the BU marching band onto and off the field. He took his cues, stylistically and sometimes materially, from the freewheeling irreverence of Ivy League band narrations. And honest to heaven, we had no idea what silly and sometimes borderline inappropriate jokes he was going to deliver next over the PA system. He never did get the band in trouble, but he often did make its leadership sweat. In my recollection, though, neither Jim nor Scott ever made a remark that rose, or perhaps more accurately descended, to the level of last week's Ozempic crack. If I'm the band director in the Florida A&M situation, I'm not sure that I leave it at merely a 2-game suspension. And finally, example number 3, when bad things happen from within good bands. Dateline, Peach County, Georgia. On September 26th, Fort Valley State University suspended its Blue Machine marching band due to hazing allegations, just days before the school's homecoming celebration on October 4th. Executive Director of Marketing and Communications Brittany Smith said that Fort Valley State University ordered the band to suspend all activity due to allegations of hazing, pursuant to an independent investigation led by the university's Office of Legal and Government Affairs, in accordance with FVSU policy, University System of Georgia policy, and the Stop Campus Hazing Act. The Stop Campus Hazing Act is a federal law that requires colleges and universities that participate in federal student aid programs to report hazing incidents. The timing was especially significant as FVSU prepared for its annual homecoming week, with thousands of alumni and supporters expected to return to campus for events including a traditional and high-profile rivalry football game against Tuskegee University. The development also came as Fort Valley State recently had been ranked the #1 public historically black college and university in Georgia by U.S. News & World Report. The university subsequently said that the band would remain under suspension and would not perform during homecoming weekend. Adding to the school's woes, on October 1st, the Fort Valley Police Department announced that it had found sufficient evidence to support charges of hazing, and that it had arrested 2 students in connection with an incident that took place off campus on the afternoon of September 24th. This is a tough one. Back in 2014, I wrote in my online blog of the time about an Ohio State University investigation into allegations of an environment conducive to sexual harassment within the band, creating a hostile environment for students, which resulted in, among other things, the firing of the band director. I wrote about that with a particular eye toward the discovery that the perpetrators and sponsors of the hazing activities had included band alumni. Around that same time, a former member of the Florida A&M band was convicted of manslaughter and felony hazing in the November 2011 death of Florida A&M drum major Robert Champion. That incident cast a pall over the school's nationally acclaimed band, which had played at Super Bowls and for U.S. presidents. The band was suspended for more than a year after the death, and several school officials resigned in the aftermath. Sorry to conclude on that kind of a downer, but all these examples of bad things happening to or near or from within good bands do all combine to make a larger point. Not just starred thought, how quickly it can evaporate, as a teacher of mine once said, referring to the possibility of all the accomplishments and goodwill that a band program can amass over a period of years and decades coming crashing down because of one ill-considered moment, one bad decision, or one condition that has nothing to do with the actual, tangible, public-facing product of the band, namely the music, and in many cases the movement, the dots, the notes, the carriage, the choreography, the energy and spirit and revelry. But also, The larger point that it can evaporate quickly through no fault of the band membership, or a majority thereof, and that all the preparation and vigilance in the world may be no match for a single incident that is largely or completely out of the organization's control. It's sobering, and a lot of times, it's our life out here in band world. All right, let's grab another short break, and on the other side of that, I've got a historical tale for you, which may lighten the mood a bit. This is BandWagon. Here comes the dogfight. In this episode's dogfight, a commemoration of an event that next to nobody actually witnessed, but which reverberated through 3 decades. On Saturday afternoon, September 23, 1995, the University of Delaware football team visited sunny Nickerson Field in Boston, Massachusetts, and administered a bit of a beating to the Boston University Terriers to the tune of 41 points to 29. Although, hey, actually that wasn't the worst result possible. I mean, the Terriers put up 29 points against Delaware in the mid-1990s. That means they found the end zone at least 4 times, right? Or something similar? I mean, against Delaware. Sorry, this is not a football podcast. Or maybe it is sometimes. Anyway, that year, 1995, happened to be the first of 29 years, speaking of 29, in which Heidi Sarver would be director of the University of Delaware Band, and she had decided that the band's first overnight road trip under her watchful eye would be up north to the Boston University game. By a staggering coincidence, her fellow UMass drum major of 8 years prior, little old me, was in the first month of his time as BU's graduate assistant for bands. It wasn't quite at the same level of 2 friends get their bands together for a play date as our shared experience 10 years later involving Holy Cross in Delaware, about which I have waxed poetic in this space before. After all, BU wasn't my band. It already had a director, thank you. I was a minion at that point. But it was kind of a cool afternoon. I was also a fledgling Delaware band staff member, in that I was in the process of writing the first of what would turn out to be a bunch of musical arrangements for the Fightin' Blue Hens. My rule was, if Heidi calls you and asks, any chance you can put together this particular tune, you do it. She was kind of doing the thin end of the wedge thing. I was writing an item that would close the 1995 season's second show, and then we'll see what other work we can dream up for you to do. She was very generous. So, after the football game was over, if I recall correctly, the Delaware Band boarded their buses and headed further in toward downtown Boston to play an outdoor standstill concert at the Faneuil Hall Marketplace, which is one of the hub's most obvious tourist traps, if I'm being completely honest. And then they headed back to the hotel they were staying at. I think that was in or near the city of Woburn, a few miles northwest of Boston. Before the Delaware Band headed for downtown Boston from Nickerson Field, Heidi and I had crossed paths, and she told me where their hotel was and said, come by if you can tonight. And I promised to, and I did. She and I found a table not far from the hotel pool and watched as various of the about 180 Delaware bandos either jumped into it or hovered near it or passed by it, and we traded stories of our respective relatively new band homes. Among the topics we were covering included what levels of different our new band homes were compared to our previous shared home of UMass. What traditions or procedures or etc. were in place in Newark, Delaware, or Allston, Brighton, Massachusetts, which were different from what we knew back in Amherst. Did they seem to work, or did they invite scrutiny to see if some of our UMass tactics might change things for the better? Obviously, Heidi was in a better position to make those changes. As a mere newbie minion at BU, I was in no position to dictate terms, and I was perfectly comfortable with that. One of the band traditions at UMass, which we both appreciated for multiple reasons, was its traditional musical performance closer, an arrangement of the famous Frank Sinatra cover of My Way. I think I've talked about that on this podcast at some point, surely. Long story short, at the end of just about every UMass band performance, whether it was the closing moments of a football post-game show or the end of a field show at a high school exhibition, the band formed concert arcs and played a verse, then sang a verse, then played a little tag of My Way, and marched away to its percussion cadence. UMass's director, George Parks, had brought the tune with him from his experience at Westchester University and turned it into a band anthem, in spite of the lyrics which have been seen in some quarters, including by Frank Sinatra, as possibly a little bit self-absorbed or self-indulgent. My friends, I'll say it clear, I'll state my case of which I'm certain. I've lived a life that's full, I've traveled each and every highway. It seemed a very band sentiment. So, sitting there at that little table by the hotel pool, Heidi looked at me and said, I need a My Way for my band. But I can't use My Way because it's already George's. And anyway, I should do something different. So I need something that's not my way to be my way. I nodded sagely. The conversation went in another direction, but the back of my mind was, predictably, working overtime on this puzzle. What song do we know that could be turned to that purpose? It would have to be a song with lyrics that could be a very band sentiment. It would need to be a song that audiences would recognize and wouldn't need explained to them. And for some reason, I supposed that while George Parks and the song My Way represented one generation of American pop music, Heidi and I represented the next one. Maybe there was a song that was popular around the time we were very young that could serve all those purposes and also be a nod to a slightly more contemporary moment. Now, what pop music acts were at Sinatra levels of popularity? The Beatles? Maybe. I want to hold your hand. No, not the right sentiment. Can't buy me love. No, too bouncy. Yesterday. No, too sad. Oh, wait. It was one of those moments of inspiration that, well, in the moment, it seemed like a spectacular revelation, and then afterwards seemed like the most obvious thing in the world. Like, who wouldn't have immediately thought of that one? Me, apparently. But I looked at Heidi and said, how about In My Life? Oh, there are places I'll remember all my life, though some have changed, some forever, not for better, some have gone, and some remain. A song for both current band members and alumni. Ooh. But of all these friends and lovers, there is no one compares with you, and these memories lose their meaning when I think of love as something new. Well, not exactly what we might be going for. Though I know I'll never lose affection for people and things that went before, I know I'll often stop and think about them. In my life, I love you more. Oh, maybe this is not the thing after all. Well, no, we can cut and paste. Use the lyrics that work. Hopefully the rhyme scheme will kind of still be intact. Let me think on that. At that point in the conversation, a gentleman walked past whom both Heidi and I had known for some years. He had been a percussionist at UMass. His time there had overlapped with ours. His freshman year was my senior year, and it was Heidi's second graduate student year, if I remember correctly. He started in the snare line and moved to the front ensemble thereafter. He was now, there in fall of 1995, Heidi's assistant director and the Delaware percussion guy. He was fairly well known then. Nowadays, let's be honest, he's a giant in the marching percussion industry. He's got endorsement deals, he's got his own line of mallets, and with all the drum corps cred he carries, right this moment in 2025, just about all you need to say is DCI World Champion Boston Crusaders.
Jim. Your name is Jim. Yes.
Ancona, to be exact. So Jim Ancona walked past our table, and Heidi looked at him and said, "Got an idea?" He looked at us. I said, "Beatles, In My Life." In his typical effusive fashion, born of his percussive experience under the tutelage of the effervescent and loquacious Tom Hannum, yeah. Jim said, "Yeah." So I rushed home and set to work writing an arrangement of that Beatles tune that conformed to the structure and format of My Way. Play a verse, sing a verse, play a tag. I moved lyrics around like they were Lego pieces, and they eventually read, "There are places I'll remember all my life, though some have changed. Some forever, not for better. Some have gone, and some remain. Though I know I'll never lose affection for people and things that went before, I know I'll often stop and think about them. In my life, I've loved them all." And in the 30 years, give or take a week or two, since that conversation near a suburban Boston hotel pool, the University of Delaware Marching Band has closed just about all its performance days with In My Life. I've been pleased to have been a part of building another band's My Way. I've been pleased to hear and read Delaware band members and alumni referencing it, live and on social media, as they describe what their time in that band and in the community of people who used to be in it means to them. I've been pleased to observe that it really does seem to mean as much to them as My Way meant to us. And I've been beyond pleased to see that In My Life made the jump from the Heidi Sarver era to the Burke Johnson era, when the Delaware Band's directorship changed hands in 2024. That, quite honestly, did not have to happen. The new director did not have to maintain that tradition. It's her band now. But on the other hand, Dr. Johnson is also a Delaware band alum, so I suppose the chances of keeping hold of In My Life were not as remote as they could have been. After this one final pause, we'll wrap things up for this episode. Thanks for continuing to listen. To wrap up this week, let's take the CODA. For the CODA, this is not the first time this sort of thing has happened. And to be sure, the current event that began on the morning of Wednesday, October 1st, is one that creates far-reaching and arguably more life and death consequences than the one I'm going to illustrate here. But when the federal government shuts down, for whatever exasperating reasons, the arts are just as impacted as anything else, really. This statement from the Facebook account of the President's Own, the U.S. Marine Band. Quote, "Due to the government shutdown, the Marine Band will be unable to perform public-facing concerts until further notice. We will resume events upon established government funding. We apologize for the inconvenience this will cause for our concert patrons." And from the Facebook account of the U.S. Navy Fleet Bands, whose posts usually are bubbly and enthusiastic and contain at least one exclamation point, comes this terse missive. Quote, "There is a lapse of appropriations and there will be limited updates." That is no reflection on those bands. They can only do what they can do fiscally. Rather, it's a couple of bands, and so many more U.S. military bands besides, who are in the same boat, a situation not of their own making, at the mercy of politicians who, in a government shutdown of their own making, will not feel financial hardship in the slightest. The bands are, once again, caught in the crossfire. It's not their fault, but it's not the kind of public relations you wish for. And that's a wrap for this episode of BandWagon. Thanks as always for downloading and listening. BandWagon was written, researched, and produced by your humble host. Musical interludes were produced by Hammerton Media from source material largely by John Philip Sousa. You can listen to more episodes at the pod's website, heyband.podbean.com. Please give me feedback. Let me know what you like or what you think might change. You can do that using the email address heybandwagon@yahoo.com. Or leave a 90-second voice message by going to speakpipe.com/heybandwagon. Be aware that I do reserve the right to include your message on the podcast unless you say otherwise. Those contact links and links to this episode's news items and conversation topics can be found in our show notes, as can a link to BandWagon's merch store thanks to the good folks at TeePublic. Speaking of whom, they just announced their October discount sale dates, October 8th through 12th and October 22nd through 26th. Up to 35% off all kinds of goodies that you can wear or stick to your fridge. Please share the show on social media, and thank you for that. If you enjoyed this podcast, please do share it in the direction of someone whom you think might not be a listener yet. Word of mouth really is the best recruiting tool. And to keep up with the podcast, subscribe to BandWagon on the Podbean app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever fine podcasts are sold. For now, take care, stay in touch, stay in tune, and we'll do this all again in about a fortnight. I'm Rob Hammerton, and remember this starred thought, which I include for no particular reason. People don't judge you based on your attitude. They judge you based on what they think is your attitude.